Discover the unexpected transformation. How one brave maid exposed the heart of a cold CEO. Emily maneuvered through the glistening corridors of the corporate hotel, her cart of cleaning supplies clattering softly as she passed the towering walls adorned with shimmering art. She felt small, unseen, a ghost among the glamorous guests darting past, their laughter and chatter making her existence feel even more invisible. Each day, the same cycle repeated, the grandeur of polished marble and crystal chandeliers, a stark contrast to the dull rags she wore. But today, the air felt different, as if the tumult of the storm outside had seeped into the sanctuary of wealth. As she rounded the corner, she nearly collided with a tall man enveloped in a tailored suit, his face sharp and perfectly chiseled. His eyes, striking and focused, locked onto hers for a fleeting moment. David, a name whispered among the staff, the elusive CEO with a reputation for ruthlessness. She felt a jolt, as though their connection was electric. He didn't acknowledge her, of course he wouldn't, but instincts tugged at her gut. She remembered her father, a man who had once been part of something grand, a venture that had faded into obscurity. A chill ran through her as thoughts collided. Was there a part of him she might recognize? The encounter lingered, fueled by curiosity and dread. What did he see when he looked at her? Nothing, she reminded herself. Yet with each shift of her cart, the weight of her own life loomed heavier. Her mother's illness gnawed at her heart, leaving an ache that settled deep. The struggle to hold everything together was a constant shadow, whispering fears of not being enough. What if her past collided with his present, threatening to unravel everything she held dear? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Days melted into nights, and Emily's world became consumed with anxiety. Her mind raced with the implications of her father's legacy, a haunting echo of promises never fulfilled. Discovering David's company was intertwined with her father's downfall felt like a twisted warping of fate. Could she blow the whistle, risking her future, her family's love, their very safety? Or was it better to stay muted, to fade into the wallpaper of someone's reality? Even as she scrubbed the guest rooms, her thoughts felt chaotic, like a storm waiting to break, events building on one another, tension thickening with each new discovery she made while cleaning David's office. Receipts, names, transactions. It was as if a thread spun from her past was slowly unraveling. A determined resolve burgeoned within her, but uncertainty gnawed viciously. She was standing on a precipice. One side led to truth and justice, the other to the precarious safety of silence. Just when she thought the pressure could become bearable, an ultimatum rocked her from within. Someone she had trusted revealed hidden interests that threatened her mission. Once a source of strength, this betrayal left her feeling vulnerable and isolated. The stakes felt unimaginably high. She could either confront David with the truth or remain shackled by fear, trapped in the same cycle from which she so desperately wanted to escape. As Emily's breath grew shallow and her resolve wavered, a message arrived, a stark reminder that her world was crumbling. The reality of her choices spiraled into focus, and she knew that the night ahead would demand her courage in ways she could hardly fathom. Would she find her voice before everything slipped away? The stakes had never felt higher, and the time to act was running out. Emily stood at the edge of her solitary room, the clutter of cleaning supplies giving the space an air of chaotic organization. The distinct smell of disinfectant hung heavily in the air, mingling with memories of her father's stories, whispers of tenacity and ambition that had once echoed through their modest home. She scrolled through the remnants of her thoughts, acknowledging the swirling conflict swirling in her chest. What if she were to expose David? The weight of that potential decision threatened to crush her beneath its enormity. The glow of her phone flickered in the dim light, revealing the unread message from her betrayer, a stark reminder of the fragile line she walked. Trust was a delicate balance, and she had underestimated the dangers of letting anyone into her deepest ambitions. That very betrayal intensified the urgency within her. She felt the bracing chill of determination overcoming her fear. She needed to find a way to rise above the tide of uncertainty crashing against her. With her heart drumming a relentless rhythm against her ribcage, she prepared herself to face David. If she was going to confront him, she needed to confront her own doubts first. She pulled from the depths of her being all the motivations that showed her courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. In the reflective surface of the glass cleaner, she saw a version of herself that was yet to fully emerge, a fierce warrior trapped in the guise of a maid. Stepping into the vibrancy of the hotel corridors, Emily clutched a folder filled with documents that had once seemed innocuous, but now thrummed with the pulse of her father's legacy. Each report carried whispers of hidden dealings, transactions that entangled her past with the present like a spider's web suffocating its prey. A fire ignited within her. She glanced at an ornate clock perched in the lobby. It was now or never. With each stride, the echoes of ambition blared in her mind. She navigated through marble flooring and plush carpets, feeling a shift coursing through the very air she breathed. David's office loomed ahead, and as if summoned by the weight of her purpose, he emerged from it, pencil in hand, brow furrowed in concentration. There he stood, the king of the castle, a fortress built on the foundations of power and control. The seconds stretched as she prepared to speak, but as their eyes locked, a simmering recognition passed between them, much like the spark of their first encounter. Was it the shared weight of family history, the unseen burden of expectations they both carried? Or was it something deeper, buried beneath layers of formality and facade? A question bloomed in Emily's mind. What if David wasn't just a ruthless CEO? What if he, too, had been trapped within the palace of his own making? "David, I need to talk to you," she said, her voice steady despite the raging storm within. His gaze shifted, eyebrows raising with curiosity mingled with skepticism. About what? She took a deep breath, the rush of air replenishing her resolve. "It's about the project your father started, the one you buried." For the first time, she noticed the flicker of vulnerability beneath his composed exterior. Was he aware of the consequences he might be facing? As Emily initiated this precarious dance of trust, the stakes of her mission solidified with every heartbeat that echoed like a war drum in her ears. She could see the path unfolding before her, one that promised both destruction and possibility. Just as David began to reply, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed behind them. Someone was drawing closer, and the air crackled with tension. Would she seize this moment to reveal the truth, or would the intrusion sever her chance at resolution forever? Time felt suspended on the precipice of a revelation, but would this be her moment of victory or despair? The footsteps drew nearer, slicing through the charged atmosphere as Emily shifted her weight, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The urgent sounds seemed to blur the lines between her determination and the palpable fear that clawed at her resolve. David's expression morphed, eyes narrowing slightly, as if he sensed the crisis. She was standing on the brink of a revelation that could alter the balance of their precarious alliance. With a calculated breath, Emily darted her gaze past David's shoulder. The approaching figure revealed itself to be Laura, the hotel's head of security, striding purposefully with a seriousness that contradicted her usual demeanor. The tension expanded, wrapping around Emily's throat, squeezing down her confidence like a vice. Was this intrusion a misstep or a fortunate distraction? "Is everything all right here?" Laura's sharp tone cut through the moment. Emily had to act quickly. This was her moment to cement her ambition or risk losing everything. She locked eyes with David, searching for the glimmer of understanding she hoped would linger. "Yes," David replied, a hint of irritation marking his voice, as if he was ready to dismiss Laura. "We were just discussing it, actually. It's more than that," Emily interjected, the claim escaping her lips with unexpected force. "I need to speak with David in private." "It's urgent." Laura paused, the tension radiating between the three of them like a supercharged storm, growing heavier by the second. Sorry, but Protocol Lara began, her professional training clashing against the urgency of Emily's request. I know about the project your father started, Emily pressed on, feeling the momentum shift with each word. And I know why it was buried. If I'm to help you, David, we need to confront this together now. David's eyes widened, and for a fleeting moment, the newcomer seemed to dissolve into the background, a mere shadow against their burgeoning confrontation. The flicker of vulnerability that had crossed his face before ignited into something deeper. Was it acceptance? Fear? Maybe even recognition that they shared more than just their families' names? All right, David finally admitted, sending a nod Lara's way, signaling her to retreat. His directive breathed life back into the charged space, giving them the solitude that Emily desperately needed. The moment was theirs to seize, fraught with both risk and potential. Let us go into my office, he said, leading the way with an urgency that both intimidated and inspired. She followed, feeling like a soldier stepping onto the battlefield, the path ahead laden with uncertainty, yet ripe with possibility. As the door clicked shut behind them, a shroud of intimacy enveloped the room, casting out the noise of the world outside. Why didn't you tell me? He held her gaze, a challenge simmering beneath his calm exterior. You're just one of the cleaning staff. What do you know about my father's dealings? Her heart raced as she fought against the weight of his condescension, the urge to shrink back into the shadows she so desperately sought to escape. I've spent years piecing together the fragments of his legacy. My father had a vision for something greater, but your family, she took a breath. Realizing this was the pivotal moment. Your family buried that vision. David's expression shifted, skepticism yielding to intrigue. And what's your plan? Come here, throw accusations? Emily felt the corners of her mouth twitch with resolve. No. I'm here to offer you a partnership to show you what could be achieved if we bring those plans to light. But first, we have to confront the truth. The air thickened between them, heavy with vulnerability, truth, and ambition. This would either shatter their connection or form the bedrock for transformation, if only for them to navigate together the ruins of their legacies. As David processed her words, uncertainty knit his brow. Would he see her not just as a maid, but as a force capable of unraveling the truths beneath the surface? Emily held her breath, the weight of her future dangling precariously on the edge of his decision. Tell me then, he said finally, a challenge rekindling fire in his voice. What did I miss about my father? The question hung in the air, dense with anticipation. Would this be the moment they ignited something profound, or burn each other to ash in the process? As she opened her mouth to respond, a surge of doubt crept back. Was she ready to take the plunge into this unknown depth of his past? But her ambition ignited, and as she steadied herself, the flicker of potential spurred her forward. This was no longer just about exposure, it was about transformation. As she prepared to delve into the unresolved echoes of complex legacies, one truth remained: this would irrevocably change them both. Whatever came next would forge a new path or completely destroy them. The room pulsed with an electric tension as Emily struggled to articulate the swirling thoughts in her mind. Time seemed suspended, each second stretching out in anticipation of David's reaction. She could feel his eyes boring into her, uncertainty morphing into an intense scrutiny. Somehow, she had to break the cycle of their inherited legacies and ignite the spark of something entirely new, something that transcended their family's pasts. Drawing in a breath, she finally spoke. Your father didn't just abandon a project, David. He buried it because it threatened the family status. There was fear of failure, and with it, fear of losing control. But that fear was misplaced. David shifted in his seat, his posture betraying a mix of defensiveness and curiosity. Her words hung in the air. She pressed on. Your father envisioned a sustainable hotel that could change the landscape of this industry, blending profit with environmental stewardship. The plans once outlined the possibility of innovation that could have set a precedent. Stop, David interrupted, his face tight with emotion. You don't know my father. He had his reasons. Yes, reasons rooted in fear and power, Emily responded, her voice rising with conviction. But this isn't about him anymore, David. This is about us. You have the chance to redefine everything. To embrace the vision he denied. His gaze faltered, revealing a flicker of vulnerability beneath his carefully crafted facade. Emily seized that moment. If you're going to do this, you need to see the entire picture. Not just the pieces your father expected you to frame. Raw energy coursed through her as she continued. Do you honestly want to repeat the mistakes of the past? You have potential, but it's locked away under the weight of expectations you never chose. Today could be your turning point. David's breath hitched, caught between the security of his family's legacy and the siren call of a future unrestrained by their fears. His position was no longer tenable. The question now was whether he had the mettle to confront the truth she offered. I need more than just rehashing old plans, he said finally, a tinge of desperation creeping into his voice. How do we start? The question of how ignited a deeper resolve within Emily. Here lay an opportunity not only for David but for her as well, a chance to step into a role that expanded past the boundaries of her current existence. We gather the existing materials and research, assess what can still be salvaged, and we find a way to present it not as a risk, but as an opportunity. I'm not sure my board will agree, he said, doubt darkening his features. Then we convince them, Emily countered, feeling the iron grip of confidence tighten around her heart. But first, you have to believe. You have to own your father's vision, and not as a burden, but as a launching pad. His shoulders squared, the tension in his body morphing into a stance of determination. Okay, but you have to help me navigate the board, and you have to trust me, too. She nodded, aware that each shared glance was an unspoken agreement for partnership, a merging of their fates. It was a critical juncture, the moment she had prepared for but never truly anticipated. This would require them both to embrace vulnerability, to challenge the very cores of who they thought they were. As they began to outline their next steps, the once overwhelming fear dissipated, replaced by a burgeoning resolve. Emily felt alive not just as an individual, but as a vital force reinventing the narrative of her life and theirs. However, one thought gnawed at her. They were stepping into dangerous territory. The legacy of David's father loomed large, and what if the board wasn't as receptive as they hoped? The next crucial decision would forge their destiny. But would they have the courage to face the backlash, or would the shadows of the past swallow them whole? The unrevealed struggles lay just ahead, threatening to shake the very foundations they were trying to build. With that looming uncertainty, they commenced their new path, but the real challenge was only just beginning. As they sat side by side amidst a storm of ideas, Emily felt a strange blend of excitement and trepidation swell within her. The familiar surroundings of the conference room transformed into a sanctuary of potential, a battleground for ideas that could extend beyond mere survival and tip into thriving innovation. Yet, with every breath she took, the weight of the past loomed ominously, an echo of caution that warned her of the perils shrouded in David's family legacy. Okay, David said, breaking her reverie. Let's get started on the presentation. We need a strategy to convince the board that we're not stepping into the void. We're creating a new reality. Emily felt a rush of pride for his emerging resolve. He was beginning to shed the chains of his father's expectations, but the challenge lay in not just convincing the board, but defying an entrenched legacy that had shaped his identity. We'll start by crafting a vision statement, something that encompasses both our goals and the emotional resonance of this project, she suggested, the words flowing with a newfound conviction. As the hours passed, they started to dissect the old plans. Emily immersed herself in research, focusing on sustainable practices and market trends that showcase their potential for profitability. Each newfound statistic and study served as shards of light, illuminating the path ahead while cutting through the fog of doubt that once suffocated her ambition. Did you know that eco-friendly hotels can increase booking rates by up to 30%? Emily exclaimed, her excitement infectious. She could see the spark in David's eyes grow brighter. For the first time in years, he was allowing himself to dream beyond his father's shadow and embrace the potential of transformation. They worked tirelessly to synthesize their ideas. But as the hours turned into days, doubts began to creep back into her mind. What if this doesn't work, David? What if we fail? She questioned one morning, pulling her phone from her pocket, as if seeking an ally. Then we try again, he replied firmly, his gaze unwavering. Failure is a part of growth, isn't it? The real failure would be to not even attempt it, because we're afraid. His words struck a chord deep within her. She had been grappling with the very same fear, but hadn't he reframed it as he had? Deep down, she realized that her professional journey had been stifled by the same inherited fears, an echo of her own family's disappointments, expectations that pushed her into conformity rather than authenticity. As weeks unfolded, they created an innovative presentation that poised the project as more than just an opportunity. It represented a reimagined legacy. The day approached for them to present to the board, and Emily dedicated time to refine her personal narrative, aiming to connect it to the project's vision. She understood now the power of storytelling blended with data, how vulnerability had become her strongest asset. On the morning of their presentation, the air hummed with tension and anticipation. Emily remained focused. She had practiced her delivery, but the reality of standing before the board still struck like a clenched fist around her heart. Would their vision resonate, or would the looming specters of their past snuff the spark they had ignited? As she and David took their positions, ready to present their ideas to men and women shaped by the very legacies they were trying to penetrate, she caught a glimpse of David's nervousness. Beneath his composed exterior lay an intense battle. She reached out, placing a steadying hand on his arm, a silent promise of solidarity. "This is our moment," Emily whispered, and they stepped forward together. The air felt heavy, charged with possibility and dread. Would they rise to claim their futures, or falter in the face of the past's grip? The board members watched, expressions inscrutable, and as Emily began her opening remarks, she felt each heartbeat align with the prospect of change, yet uncertainty lingered like a specter in the back of her mind. Faced with the challenge of not just invention but invigoration, would they break free of their legacies or find themselves swallowed by them? As she spoke, one question silently echoed. Would courage be enough to dismantle the walls built by history? The room seemed to shrink around Emily as she began her presentation, facing the board members' inscrutable expressions. Each word she spoke felt heavy with anticipation and the weight of her own insecurities. She outlined their vision for a sustainable, eco-friendly hotel, framing it as not just a business opportunity, but a chance to redefine the brand's entire legacy. "Imagine a world where luxury meets responsibility," she said, her voice steadying. "It's not just about profits, it's about creating a community and growing a brand that future generations will be proud of." The eyes of the board members moved from her to David, whose presence beside her seemed to bolster her confidence. With each statistic she presented, she watched their reactions closely, gauging interest, skepticism, and intrigue. But as she wrapped up her segment, a chill of doubt crept through her. She had spoken with passion and poise, but what if they saw only impracticality in her bold ideas? David stepped in, picking up where she left off. He spoke earnestly about the potential impacts of their proposal, leveraging his family's history to connect the past with the future. It was a pivotal moment for him, an undeniable act of defiance against the shadow of his father. The board members leaned forward, nodding thoughtfully at David's insights. Yet, amidst the shared enthusiasm of their presentation, Emily's mind wandered into darker territories. What if the presentation was just a mask for deeper failures lurking within their operation? As these thoughts swirled, she recalled the countless moments of doubt she'd experienced since stepping into the industry. Had she really transformed, or merely put on a show for the world to see? After completing the presentation, an unexpected question emerged from one of the board members, an older man, his brow furrowed, trying to mask a hint of skepticism. "What specific steps will you take to ensure that this vision does not fall short, like previous attempts?" Emily stammered, caught off guard. The tension in the room shifted, as that inquiry laid bare her own fears. Beneath the polished surface of her proposal lay a labyrinth of uncertainties, concerns about logistics, funding, and potential pushback from traditionalists within the company. She had crafted a vision, but could she navigate the challenges intertwined with reality? Drawing a deep breath, she realized this was her opportunity to confront her own doubts head-on. "Our strategy is not just theoretical," she answered, steeling herself. "We plan to implement a phased approach, gathering data and feedback at each step. We research partnerships with sustainability experts and innovative marketing strategies that reflect our mission. Above all, success will hinge on seeking continuous dialogue with all stakeholders to adapt as needed." As she spoke, the urgency she felt transformed into strength, and the words resonated not only through the boardroom, but within herself. This was what she had sought, a substantive commitment to growth. Emily understood then that this moment was more than just a presentation. It was an embrace of her own path to authenticity, merging her professional ambitions with her personal values. The remaining board members exchanged glances, weighing her response. Each face revealed shifting dynamics, bridging uncertainty and intrigue. For the first time, Emily sensed a hint of optimism blooming in the air. Yet, as the meeting concluded, the board adjourned, and she and David stepped outside, triumph quickly waning. David turned to her, his expression a mix of hope and apprehension. "Do you think we did enough?" His question lingered like a cloud, one that Emily hadn't anticipated. She had poured her conviction into that moment. Was it enough? The answer felt elusive, stoking her inner fire with a blend of hope and unease. The journey had only just begun, and her doubts felt like shadows moving closer. Would they secure the investment necessary to realize their vision, or had they only taken a first step into another potential failure? Reflecting on that uncertainty, Emily resolved to turn energies from merely surviving into a fight for genuine transformation. The stakes were too high, and the path too promising to falter. The next day was framed with new urgency as David received a text from an unexpected ally, another board member eager to discuss their presentation further. What had she missed that would refine their strategy? What new challenges awaited them? With renewed determination, Emily took a deep breath, ready to face whatever was next. Would this opening be the turning point she had hoped for, or a fleeting chance that faded speedily? Emily sat in her small office, the sparse decor serving as a testament to her dedication and grit. The morning light streamed through the window, illuminating a stack of reports she had pored over the night before. Her determination had intensified since the board meeting, but it also brought along an undercurrent of anxiety. She felt like a tightrope walker, balancing between ambition and doubt. Each page she flipped unveiled insights and statistics about sustainable practices that could bolster their project. She had dedicated years to learning everything she could about eco-friendly building practices and customer engagement strategies. Now, she resolved to synthesize that knowledge into a revised proposal that would not only showcase the feasibility of their plan, but also address the board members' apprehensions. As she typed, she felt a sense of liberation. This was not just about persuading others. It was about carving a pathway for herself, a way to merge her ideals with tangible results. The fingers danced across the keyboard, and as she formulated her thoughts, she found herself reflecting on her journey. She had often let fear dictate her choices, but now she was intent on breaking that cycle. Just then, David knocked and entered, a slight tremor of excitement in his demeanor. "I've set up a meeting with that board member, Claire, the one who seemed interested," he announced. There was a glint in his eyes and eagerness that reminded Emily of why they took this leap together. "Good," she replied, sensing the urgency creeping back in. "We need to ensure her support. If she's on our side, it could sway the others." David nodded, his enthusiasm infectious. He perched on the edge of her desk, leaning in eagerly. "What's our angle going to be? Do you want to present the refined proposal, or do we keep it more conversational?" Emily considered this. While she had worked hard on the logistics behind their vision, she understood the importance of emotional engagement. "Let's lay the groundwork of our vision. We want her to see the heart of this initiative," she said, her voice steady. I'll share not only the numbers and research but also the story behind our passion for this project. As they strategized, Emily felt an invigorating push towards a deeper level of vulnerability. This was about more than numbers. It was about why they believed in this change. The more she delved into her motivations, the more she understood that this was her chance to evolve not just as a leader, but as an individual committed to authenticity. Once their plan was set, David left, promising to gather additional insights before their meeting. Alone, Emily's thoughts cascaded. She recalled how uneasiness had distorted her perception of her abilities after hearing the board's skepticism. Those thoughts crept in again. Could she really shoulder the responsibility of orchestrating this transformation? She took a moment to breathe, grounding herself by recalling the accomplishments she had achieved, the awards she had earned, the projects that had succeeded under her direction. These memories sparked a flicker of confidence within her. Yet alongside that flicker of pride ignited doubt. What if she pushed too hard, expecting too much? That's when her resolve hardened. She might stumble, she might challenge the status quo, but she wouldn't retreat into fear anymore. With each push against her doubts, she felt a burgeoning strength, reminiscent of the waves crashing against the shore, relentless and unwavering. In that moment, Emily understood this was not merely a presentation, it was a reckoning with the core of her professional identity. The journey ahead would not be free of obstacles, but she would embrace the unknown with courage. As she prepared for the meeting, she found herself gravitating towards a thought. Perhaps this encounter with Claire would not only be a critical step for their project, but also a defining moment in her personal growth. Would she emerge with a strategic ally, or would the harsh reality of rejection lay bare her vulnerabilities once again? The doorbell sounded, jolting her out of her thoughts. Claire had arrived. Emily straightened her posture, ready to lean into the moment. The weight of uncertainty clung to her like a shroud, yet she felt something stir within. This wasn't just about the proposal anymore, it was about defining who she was in the face of adversity. Clutching her notes tightly, she stepped forward, her heart racing against the beat of fear and hope. How would this conversation shape her journey, and what truths about herself would unravel in the process? Emily took a steadying breath as she opened the door, revealing Claire, a polished figure whose confidence radiated from her tailored suit. Claire's keen eyes scanned the room, taking in the modest decor, a stark contrast to the corporate spaces she was used to navigating. Emily felt exposed, yet there was something in Claire's demeanor that suggested she was ready for a genuine conversation. "Thanks for coming, Claire. Please, have a seat," Emily began, gesturing toward the chair across her desk. She felt an internal tightening, a push against the tide of hesitation she had battled before. "Of course, Emily. I was intrigued by what you and David are working on," Claire replied, her tone light yet assertive. As they exchanged pleasantries, Emily carefully navigated her approach. This wasn't a transaction but rather an opportunity to share a narrative. She leaned forward slightly, eager to match Claire's energy. "My goal today is to discuss our revised proposal for the Sustainable Initiative. I believe it speaks not just to our organization's future, but also to making a meaningful impact in the community." The transition from small talk to project details felt monumental to Emily. She strove to shake the shackles of self-doubt as she laid out the foundation of their vision, articulating not only the statistics, but also the profound why behind their project. Claire nodded as she listened, occasionally interjecting with pointed questions that pierced deeper into the strategy. At first, the inquiries felt daunting, unearthed layers of doubt within Emily. Yet, as the conversation unfolded, she recognized an unfamiliar sensation. It was the first inklings of confidence forming like a dawn breaking over the horizon. "Your numbers are impressive. But I need to know, what will it truly take to shift the board's perspective?" Claire pressed, her tone shifting from curiosity to challenge. This was not merely a supportive audience. This was an evaluation, a gauntlet thrown down before Emily. In that moment, Emily felt the heat of determination welling up inside her, igniting the thread of vulnerability she had embraced earlier. "Transformation demands not just feasibility but passion," she replied, meeting Claire's gaze directly. Every project worth investing in needs a heart. Our commitment to sustainability isn't just a strategy. It's personal. It's about legacy, about creating a world where future generations can thrive. If the board can feel that, it changes everything. With those words hanging in the air, an unexpected silence enveloped them. Claire's expression shifted, her analytical mask faltering for a heartbeat as she absorbed Emily's appeal. The walls of professionalism were melting ever so slightly, revealing a shared authenticity in the room. Yet the silence didn't last. Claire's laughter broke through, light yet inquisitive. Do you realize how rare it is to hear such conviction in this industry? But tell me, how will you manage when the inevitable backlash comes? Not everyone will be receptive to what you're proposing. The challenge echoed in Emily's mind. Would naysayers be lurking around the corner, ready to strip her of this newfound courage? The weight of skepticism, woven into the fabric of corporate politics, threatened to pull her back into the shadows of doubt. Facing backlash is part of the journey, Emily responded, her voice firm. I've learned it's a test of resilience. It's easy to hide behind safe ideas, but if I don't push hard for change, what does that say about my commitment? True leadership is forged in fire. Claire's gaze sharpened, a flicker of respect sparking in her expression. You may have something here, Emily, she said quietly. I admire your fire, it's infectious. The meeting unfolded into a dynamic dialogue where Emily began to feel a connection taking root. Claire's probing questions pushed her to consider angles she hadn't anticipated, refining her thoughts on their approach. Yet, as the conversation drew toward a close, an image began to emerge in Emily's mind. Perhaps this wasn't just about landing an ally, but about deepening her understanding of leadership and authenticity. As Claire's visit wrapped up and they exchanged goodbyes, Emily stood at the cusp of change, her heart racing as she contemplated the weight of the discussion. Would she seize this momentum to engage further with the board, or would she retreat into her previous fears? The door clicked shut behind Claire, leaving Emily with a swirl of exhilaration and trepidation. She had found her voice today, but the greater test awaited how to harness this energy without letting it deflate under scrutiny. The prospect of facing the board again, armed with newfound conviction yet accompanied by the lingering specter of doubt, loomed ahead like a storm on the horizon. What awaited her in that room? A strategic alliance, or a confrontation with the ghosts of her past uncertainties? The air crackled with possibility, each breath echoing the tension between fear and courage, and she realized she was right on the edge of her evolution. The next day dawned with a sense of urgency clinging to Emily's every thought. The echoes of her conversation with Claire looped endlessly in her mind, igniting a restless need for action. Each sunrise was a stark reminder of the committee meeting looming ahead. Their response to her proposal could either provoke a renaissance in the company or suffocate her ambitions under layers of skepticism. She arrived at the office earlier than usual, the familiar sense of coffee and paper mingling with the electric buzz of tension that filled the air. The space felt different today, as if it were holding its breath in anticipation of her next move. With every step towards her desk, she felt more resolute, her shoulders squared against the weight of the decisions ahead. As she turned on her computer, her mind raced through strategies to engage the board. After hours of analytical brainstorming, she realized that her success depended not just on presenting facts and figures, but on painting a vivid picture, one that could resonate emotionally with the board members. They needed to feel the urgency of her initiative, to grasp not only what was at stake, but what could be achieved. But in order to effectively command their attention, Emily realized she first needed to address her own inner conflicts. She recalled Claire's question about facing backlash and felt insecurity bubble up again. Would board members, grizzled veterans of the industry, really embrace her vision of sustainable growth? What if they mocked her passion as naive idealism? Determined to confront her doubts, Emily sketched a list of potential challenges the board might throw her way. With each concern documented, she forced herself to craft counterarguments rooted not solely in facts, but in her passionate belief. As she strategized, she could feel the embers of her conviction reigniting, giving her the fuel she needed to combat the shadows of self-doubt. When the time for the board meeting finally arrived, Emily found herself standing outside the conference room, her heart racing. The glass walls were an unnerving reminder that she was stepping into a spotlight, one that exposed her vulnerabilities to the seasoned executives inside. She took a moment to center herself, picturing Claire's support as a lifeline and using it to breathe deeply, calming the tremors within. As she entered the room, all eyes turned to her, a mix of curiosity and skepticism reflected back from the austere faces that surrounded the table. With each step toward the front, Emily's palms tingled, her mind racing through the opening lines she had rehearsed. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice steady yet warm. "Today, I want to share not just a proposal but a vision that transcends profit margins and speaks to our legacy." Gradually, as she navigated through her presentation, she utilized the strategies she had forged in the hours of preparation. She painted her narrative vivid with the colors of passion, her words echoing across the marble surface. Each statistic became a stepping stone leading her audience toward understanding the profound impact their choices could make. But as she wrapped up her presentation, Emily sensed the board's guardedness still looming like a thundercloud overhead. Questions fired back at her, piercing her confidence yet simultaneously clarifying her resolve. In moments of uncertainty, she leaned into her authenticity, addressing concerns with clarity, vulnerability, and unwavering strength. As the meeting drew to a close, a palpable energy simmered in the room. Members conferred in hushed tones, evaluating what she had positioned before them. The tension was thick and electric, crackling with questions of whether they would lean into the future she had crafted or retreat to the safety of tradition. Emily stood at the precipice of change, her heart racing as she awaited their verdict. Behind the confident facade she had presented, doubts fluttered within her chest. Had she truly pierced their skepticism, or had she simply amplified her own fears? As the board prepared to voice their decision, Emily felt an unexpected kinship with the uncertainty she had experienced throughout this journey. Moments passed like hours, the reality of potential rejection heightening her adrenaline, her eyes locked onto those of her audience, waiting for the first word to fall and change everything. The moment of truth was near, and with it, a turning point in her professional narrative. Would they embrace her vision, or would she have to plan her next chapter amid a well of disappointment? The silence in the conference room was finally pierced by Mr. Thompson, the board's oldest member, his voice gruff yet surprisingly gentle. "Emily, you've shown us something today that we haven't seen in a long time. Passion. Your proposal speaks not just to profits, but to the sustainability that our future hinges upon. That matters. But how do we mitigate the risks?" With a rush of adrenaline, Emily seized the moment. Mitigation, Mr. Thompson, lies in our willingness to innovate and adapt. We can start with pilot projects implementing sustainable practices in phases, allowing us to gather data and learn from the market response. It's essential to turn perceived risks into manageable stepping stones. The other board members were nodding, but doubt still loomed. She could sense it, a collective wariness about changing their well-established norms. Success, Emily continued, is not merely the absence of failure. It's how we respond to challenges that will define us. Investing in sustainability is investing in our legacy. Another board member, Ms. Collins, interjected with a question laced with skepticism. "And who will lead these initiatives? Your experience at this level is minimal. Can we really count on you to drive such a significant turnaround?" The question struck a chord deep within, but instead of retreating, Emily felt an unexpected surge of confidence. "I may not have been in this role long enough to have decades of experience behind me, but what I bring is a fresh perspective and a commitment to learning. I've spent years gathering insights from industry experts and leading grassroots projects focused on sustainability. This will be my responsibility, and I'm ready to rise to the occasion. Together with David, we can assemble a team that grounds our mission in expertise while maintaining the enthusiasm we desperately need." David's presence beside her radiated unwavering support, and she drew strength from him. "If we embrace this change as a collective, we won't just become leaders. We can redefine industry standards." The board members glanced at one another, and the air shifted as the gravity of Emily's words settled in. It was palpable the transformation she had long sought was unfolding before her, gradually coaxing them into her vision of the future. The hesitation in the air was giving way to curiosity, perhaps even hope. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat and leaned back in his chair. "Emily, you present a compelling case. I must admit, your energy is contagious. I'm cautiously optimistic. What are our next steps if we decide to proceed?" The questions flooded in her mind like bright lights illuminating the path forward. "We can align on objectives, set timelines, and engage a core team to work closely on our pilot initiatives. Your insights as board members would be invaluable in refining those objectives." As she stepped into this collaborative vortex, she could feel the fear that had once paralyzed her melting away. This was no longer just her project. It was a movement primed for a fusion of tradition and innovation. Finally, Mr. Thompson's voice broke the heavy silence once more. "Let's put it to a vote. Those in favor of allowing Emily and David to move forward with the pilot projects." A chorus of hesitant but eager nods began to echo across the room, and Emily's heart raced. Every head that nodded felt like a newfound champion behind her cause. One by one, the board members voiced their support, wrapping around her in a cocoon of desire for change. When the last vote was cast, she felt a wave of triumph wash over her. That's 3 in favor, 2 against. The motion carries. Let's proceed with caution. In that moment, everything morphed: the boardroom, the decor, the very air infused with a new energy. Emily felt herself expand into a space she had long desired, ready to harness the reins of leadership. As patrons of transformation, they were now partners in change. She turned to David, and they shared a glance of mutual respect and excitement. Their destinies were intertwined. Both had stepped beyond the borders of their inherited identities and discovered a new path, alive with potential. In the aftermath of the meeting, Emily felt as though she had not just conquered a professional barrier, but had also bridged the gap between who she was and who she aspired to be. Leaving the conference room, she glanced in the reflective surface of the glass wall, finally seeing the fierce warrior she had been nurturing all along. With each step back to her desk, the weight of doubt lifted, replaced by a sense of solid confidence. She took out a sheet of paper and penned down "Lead with Purpose" in bold letters, a manifesto of sorts for her journey ahead. As she settled into her chair, a wave of determination washed over her. With the support of a board willing to embrace change and the partnership of a CEO ready to redefine his legacy, Emily realized this was only the beginning. Her transformation was profound, no longer the invisible Maid. She was now a recognized leader, armed with the tools of resilience. She would embrace this opportunity fully, not only for herself, but for every soul that felt trapped in the confines of expectation. In the tapestry of her new reality, she had woven threads of courage, vision, and relentless determination. The final chapter of this journey had begun, and she was ready to illuminate the path forward. Now, it's your turn to embrace change. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories of transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. You need to show your support. Comment with your reactions and theories about Emily's journey and her struggle. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience the power of personal growth. This is the moment to take action. Don't wait even one more second to share.